Good afternoon, everyone. My respected professional colleagues and friends. I'm Anjali Soli. Welcome you all on the behalf of the Jaipur ICI branch to this webinar. Next couple of the hours, our discussion is based on the topic of recent GST amendments and the important judicial pronouncements. Now we all know that GST law was introduced just 4 years back, but still now latest amendments and the updation is coming out. So judicial pronouncement is very helpful for our interpretation of the law. So now the today's session is on all of this about the things. Now I would like to call branch chairman, vice chairman, K. Kuldeep Gupta sir for welcome session.
Thank you so much, Anjali ji. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants, today's speaker Anushri Gar and moderator C. Anjali Soni ji for your time and your services to the member of the ICI. मैं आपको कुछ चीज एक छोटा सा एक रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा सभी मेंबर से जो आज ज्वाइन किए हुए हैं मीटिंग में। अगर कोई सा भी ऐसा टॉपिक, क्योंकि अभी टैक्स ऑडिट भी है, कंपनी ऑडिट भी चल रही है, आरओसी से रिलेटेड भी मैटर हो सकते हैं, या ऐसा कोई सा भी मैटर जो आपको जीएसटी, इनकम टैक्स या एनी अदर टॉपिक जिस पे आप चाहते हैं कि जयपुर ब्रांच इसके ऊपर कोई प्रोग्राम करे, किसी स्पीकर के लिए कोई प्रोग्राम कहीं पे अपने को प्रोफेशनली अपने कोई दिक्कत आ रही है, तो प्लीज आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप किसी भी मैनेजमेंट कमेटी मेंबर को आप बता सकते हैं, आप जयपुर ब्रांच की मेल आईडी पे मेल कर सकते हैं, और जिससे क्या होगा कि मेंबर्स को जो प्रैक्टिकली डे टू डे वर्किंग में जो कहीं पे भी दिक्कत आ रही है उसमें उनको थोड़ा सा सपोर्ट मिले, उनको हेल्प हो सके, क्योंकि हो सकता है कुछ हम टॉपिक करते हैं तो वो आपकी प्रॉब्लम के रिलेटेड नहीं हो, ऐसा भी हो सकता है। तो इसलिए आप सबसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि आपका कोई भी सजेशन हो वो बताएं। सेकेंड चीज, ऑल्दो आईसीआई जो मेंबरशिप फीस है वो एक्सटेंड हो चुकी है, बट चूंकि मेंबरशिप फीस कई बार अपन भूल जाते हैं क्योंकि ऑडिट से सीजन स्टार्ट होने वाला है, हम अपने वर्क में इतने बिजी हो जाते हैं, या फेस्टिवल सीजन भी है, तो अपन मेंबरशिप फीस अगर पे कर दिए तो ठीक है, अगर किसी ने नहीं करी है तो वो कर दें, क्योंकि अधिकतर लोग शायद प्रैक्टिसिंग सीए हैं और मेंबरशिप फीस की वजह से हो सकता है कि ड्यू डेट के बाद में मेंबरशिप आपका ब्लॉक हो जाए, तो इसलिए आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप वो चीज भी आप कर सकते हैं। तीसरी एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज जो मैं आप लोगों से शेयर करना चाहता हूँ कि रिसेंटली इंस्टीट्यूट के जो गाइडलाइंस है, जो स्टैंडर्ड ऑन ऑडिटिंग है और अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स है, इन सब को लेकर कई सारी चीजें अपने को मिल रही है। जो ऑडिट क्वालिटी बोर्ड जो आईसीआई में है वो अपनी टैक्स ऑडिट का और जो कंपनी ऑडिट्स का और जो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के इनके ऊपर क्वालिटी रिव्यू भी करती है। आप सभी मेंबर्स से रिक्वेस्ट है कि क्योंकि ऑडिट सीजन अभी चल रहा है, हम सभी को ऑडिट करनी भी है फाइनलाइजेशन मोड पे, ऑल्दो टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट की तरफ से अभी तक उसका कोई फाइलिंग का फॉर्मेट अभी तक लॉन्च नहीं हुआ है, बट जो एफएक्यूज और जो गाइडलाइंस ऑडिट क्वालिटी बोर्ड ने जो इशू करी है, अरे भाई एक बार उनसे गो थ्रू हो जाइए, क्योंकि उसमें बहुत सारी ऐसी कॉमन एरर्स है जो कई बार हमसे नेग्लिजेंस में भी हो जाती है, या कभी हम उसका सही इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं कर पाते चीजों को लेके, तो उन सब की चीजों की वजह से हो सकता है कि अपनी जो रिपोर्टिंग है, अपनी ऑडिट की जो रिपोर्टिंग है उसमें कहीं ना कोई कमी रहे। तो अपनी क्वालिटी रिपोर्ट की क्वालिटी को और अच्छा इंप्रूव करने के लिए अपन आप सभी से ये रिक्वेस्ट है कि कृपया गो थ्रू हो उनसे और वो सब चीजें करें। और जीएसटी के से रिलेटेड जो आज के जो कुछ रिसेंट अमेंडमेंट्स है जो अपने प्रैक्टिस में अपने लिए यूजफुल है या बिजनेस के लिए भी यूजफुल है, उसके लिए आज के जो स्पीकर है अनुश्री मैम, वो हमारे साथ जुड़ी हुई है। तो मैं एक बार पुनः थैंक यू कहना चाहूंगा अनुश्री मैम को और वेलकम करना चाहूंगा जयपुर ब्रांच की तरफ से इस प्रोग्राम में। थैंक यू। ओवर टू अंजलि मैम।
Thank you, Kuldeep sir. Now our today's speaker is C. Anushri Gargnani. C. Anushri ma'am is a practicing chartered accountant or she is a partner in the firm of the Suresh Garg and Associates firm. She has been practicing the last 60 years in the field of the GST, service tax, tax and statutory audits. She is also the eminent faculty of GST by the Indirect Tax Committee of ICI in the past. She was also associated with the law firm Ramvit Legal Firm, and she is also the engaged in the CA firm Gupta, Rajiv and Associates and sister concern from Professional Software Private Limited. It is giving the consultancy regarding the software development and related to the taxation methods, such as the compute GST, compute tax, and TDS, compute TDS. He is actively participated in a series of seminars which is conducted by the ICI as a speaker, and he is also the contributor various articles in a professional journal and online form also, like Taxman and CS Lab India. So now, without taking this so much time, I would like to invite P. Anushree Jagman for today's speaking. P. Anushree Jagman.
Thank you, Ashley. I will just start.
Anushree ma'am.
So today we'll be discussing mainly the amendments that have come up in this GST council meeting. So the press release was there, and then various notifications and circulars followed to give effect to the press release. So we'll be discussing those and a few judicial case laws. So one such update is where a person pays the wrong tax. Suppose he was liable to pay IGST, but then he paid CGST, SGST, or say UTGST, or vice versa. Then at a later period, when he finds out subsequently that he has paid the wrong tax, then what should he do? So there is this section 77 of CGST where you have paid tax under the wrong head, you can claim refund for it. But there were two words used in the section. One was subsequently held and one is relevant date. So there was no clarification as to what these two things mean. आप जो refund बाद में claim करोगे wrong tax paid का, वो आप कब तक कर सकते हो? Subsequently held का meaning क्या है? मतलब subsequently held करेगा either the taxpayer or the department. So by way of this circular now, this circular and notification, it is being clarified that subsequent by the taxpayer. मतलब डिपार्टमेंट भी कर सकता है बाय कोई भी अपील हुई है, असेसमेंट हुआ है या किसी भी और फोरम पे ये डिसाइड हुआ है कि द टैक्सपेयर हैज पेड टैक्स अंडर द रॉन्ग हेड, या फिर टैक्सपेयर सुओ मोटो उसको बाद में पता चलता है ही डिस्कवर्स व्हाइल फाइलिंग एनुअल रिटर्न या कभी भी कि उसने रॉन्ग टैक्स पे किया है. तो the day he realizes this or the department makes him realize this, he can pay the tax under the correct head. That is the day when it is subsequently held. So subsequently held का meaning ये होगा. और जब वो correct head के अंदर में tax pay करता है, then 2 years will be counted from that day for claiming refund. So this is how circular has clarified that till when claim the refund and what is the meaning of subsequently. So this is a welcome clarification and it will ease the refunds. There were these illustrations also in this regard. So there's this scenario and paid IGST on 10th May 2021. So the last date for filing refund application is 24/9. So there was also one more thing in this. अगर tax उसने correct head में before 24 September 2021 pay कर दिया है, which is the date of insertion of this new rule by the notification, then 2 years हमें 24 September 2021 से count करना है और अगर उसने बाद में पे किया है तो इन दिस पर्टिकुलर एग्जांपल सितंबर 2021 से पहले करेक्ट टैक्स पे हो गया है, तो refund application can be filed till 23rd September 2023, which is counted from 2 years, and 2 years कब से count होंगे? 24 September 2021, so which is the date of insertion of this rule. So in the next scenario, again A realizes on his own, but then that correct tax is paid on 10th November 2021, that is after 24 September. So then 2 years will be counted from this date, 10th November 2021, which falls to be 9th November 2023. In rest of the two scenarios, proper officer has determined that 24 September and after 24 September, and accordingly, the date of fund is calculated. So individual scope क्या है, की definition में कौन-कौन fall करता है, that has been clarified. Intermediate definition that is there in section 213 could say intermediary means broker, an anchor, an agent, or any other person. And the person is a similar kind of person which provides services same nature like an agent or a broker. The next limb is who facilitates the supply of goods or services or both. So this person who is either a broker, agent, or any other similar nature, he is facilitating the supply of goods or services, basically. Not providing the main supply, but facilitating it between two or more persons. That is the main seller and the main buyer, but does not include a person who supplies such goods or services or both the securities on his own account. So he is not himself supplying the goods and services between the main seller and purchaser, but only facilitating the transaction. So all these limbs have been further clarified by the circular. What are the essential elements, or we can say what are the basic tests that will certify that yes, this person is acting as an intermediary in this particular transaction. One such test is that there should be minimum 3 parties. So 2 parties will be there for the main supply, the main seller and the main purchaser, and 1 facilitator for the main supply. This facilitator is nothing but the intermediary. Then there will be 2 distinct supplies. Main supply hogi, suppose goods, suppose cotton is being sold by a seller to the purchase order, and he's a facilitator as an intermediary between the seller and buyer because he arranged that customer for the seller. So this part of the transaction is ancillary supply, service of arranging the main supply. Next seen is there. So and his role is supportive to the seller and buyer. So in the example that I just took, he is just supporting the transaction between the seller and buyer of cotton, basically. He is not himself selling the cotton. So there are 2 principals and 1 supporter who is called the intermediary. Then supply should not be on own account. This again, he is not himself making the supply of cotton. Subcontracting of main service. So here we need to the distinction between subcontracting and intermediary. जहाँ पे पूरा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जो बाइंग और सेलिंग का ट्रांजैक्शन है वो ही सब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया, जैसे दूसरे सेलर को एक दूसरे वेंडर को बोल देता है कि कॉटन टू दिस बायर. सो इन दिस केस ही इज सब कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग And इस case में that particular seller, the second seller, is not acting as an intermediary but acting as the main principal. Or say, in case he does not have all the means for this particular goods, cotton, तो उसमें वो कुछ part of service subcontractor को बोल देता है कि आप ये part which the other seller supplies, that is being subcontracted and not that is not a part of the intermediary service. So all these 5 tests we can check in. Moving on to the next update. Anji, is the PPT visible and the voice clear? Internet connection is not stable. Then moving on to the next update, we have this where for the purpose of section 16, the date of debit note and corresponding invoice has been delinked. CGST Act, which was the particular invoice credit it says a registered person will not be if you want. Then whenever you're filing I think there was a disconnection in between. I'll share the PPT once again. So yeah, we were talking about this update. Section 16(4) talks about the due date, the date till when you can take the credit for a particular debit note or invoice. So if you talk about financial year 2021, you can take the credit till the due date of filing of 3B for the month of September 2021 or the relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. Now, what was the problem in this section? It said, following the end of financial year to which such invoice or invoice relating to such debit note pertains. So what was happening, अगर कोई particular debit note किसी particular invoice से related next year में issue हो रहा है, तो उस debit note के respect में जो credit लेते थे, वो भी invoice की date से govern हो रहा था, ना कि debit note की date से. So that was creating a hazard for the taxpayers to claim the credit in respect of the debit note. So what amendment was made in section 16(4), they removed these words, invoice relating to such debit note. And this is from 1st January 2021. So when these words were removed, effect इसका क्या हो गया कि debit note की जो date है, उसी date से हम देखेंगे कि उस डेबिट नोट के लिए उस डेबिट नोट से रिलेटेड आईटीसी हम कब तक ले सकते हैं. This thing was also discussed in advanced ruling of ITEC Plus India. So Gujarat की ये AAR है, but this particular authority gave an adverse ruling that even after the amendment in section 16(4), ITC on debit notes shall be available on the basis of original invoice only. So because of these advanced rulings, because of such advanced rulings, even after the amendment in section 16(4), all these hazards were still there and all these advanced rulings were causing a confusion. So therefore, there was need of this circular, which is now, clarified that the relevant date for availing ITC and debit notes will be determined on basis of issuance of debit note and not its corresponding invoice. So here are some illustrations also. And before the illustration, there is one good bonus thing in the circular. Circular says, in case of debit notes which have been issued before 1/1/2021, it says you check from the date of ITC. If the ITC in respect of that debit note has been taken before 1st January 2021, तब तो आप उसको डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस से काउंट करो, क्रेडिट की डेट. और अगर आईटीसी बाद में लिया है तो काउंटेड फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ डेबिट नोट. तो जिन डेबिट नोट्स को हमने 1/1/2021 से पहले इशू किया है, बट उनका आईटीसी अभी तक अवेल नहीं किया है, 1/1/2021 तक भी अवेल नहीं किया है, बाद में कर रहे हैं. सो इन केस ऑफ दोज डेबिट नोट्स वी हैव अ बोनस की सर्कुलर इज सेइंग आपने आईटीसी उन पे अभी अवेल नहीं किया तो भी आप उनको डेबिट नोट की डेट से देख लो. This will be more clear from these illustrations. Original invoice की date is 16 March 2021 and date of debit note is 7th July. And the person has not availed the ITC till now. We are standing today on 9th October, and the assessee has not claimed the ITC till now. So the relevant financial year for this section 16(4) जो आप limit count करोगे, that is 2021-22. This is because debit note has been issued in 21-22, तो relevant financial year 21-22 ही है. If the date of original invoice is 15 July 2019 and debit note was issued on 10th November 2020, but the ITC has not been availed, तो इस केस में relevant financial year क्या होगा? 2020-21. मतलब it is being counted from the date of debit note and not the invoice, क्योंकि आपने ITC अभी तक avail नहीं किया है. However, if the original invoice की date same है, date of debit note is also same, but आपने ITC avail कर लिया है before 1/1/2021, that is on 15 December 2020, तब relevant financial year क्या count होगा? 2019-20. So circular is giving this bonus कि अगर आपने debit note पहले का है 1/1/2021 से, पर उसमें ITC अभी तक अवेल नहीं किया है, अभी तक मतलब 1/1/2021 तक भी अवेल नहीं किया है, तो relevant financial year आपका 2021 count होगा, ना कि 19-20. So these second and third case clarify कि आपको क्या benefit हो रहा है express circular से. और although this is not there in the law, this does not flow from the language of the notification, but this is there in the circular. And since this is a beneficial clarification for the assessee, so according to the previous judgments and case laws on all these things, कोई भी clarification अगर assessee favorable होता है, तो assessee can always follow that. Now, GST on services by way of grant of mineral exploration and mining rights. इसमें जब से ये एंट्री आई है तब से स्टार्टिंग से ही कुछ ना कुछ इशू रहा है with regards to the rate, or whether it is 18% or 5% or different for different periods, like up to 31 December 2018, it is 5% and 18% thereafter. So why is all this confusion there? Let us look at the background and then we will see what the notification and circular have clarified. So prior to 31st December and post 31st December, this was the rate structure. Prior, it was, this entry was there, leasing or rental services with or without operator. And what was the tax rate? It said that the tax rate will be same as applicable on supply of like goods. So the tax rate on minerals was 5%. So even leasing or leasing rights for these mineral exploration, the rate was 5%. However, what happened with this amendment after 31st December 2018, the entry was split in two parts. One entry was there for leasing or renting of goods. Another was for other than goods. So some people took the view that minerals fall into the definition of goods and they applied this rate, that is, they continued with the rate of 5%. Some others took the view that mineral does not fall within the definition of goods. So they started applying the rate of 18% after 31st December 2008. So this was these were the different views that were prevailing. Now there were a few advanced rulings regarding this. So they all gave different rulings. In this particular ruling of Pioneer Partners, it was pronounced before 31st December. So even they said that the rate would be 5%. In Aravali Polyart, this was on 30th May 2019. So they said that post the rate change, minerals does not fall into the definition of goods, so the rate would be 18%. Then NMDC Limited also said 18% in case of in Madhya Pradesh. And in case of the same SSC Advanced Ruling Authority in Karnataka, they said that up to 31/12/2018, the rate would be 5%, and after that it would be 18%. So all the advanced ruling authorities were taking different views. Now, what does the circular say? The circular number 164, which has come on 6th October recently. Even that says it follows this ruling of NMDC by Karnataka authorities. It says it would be 18% prior to 1/1/2019 and 5% prior to 1/1/2019 and 18% thereafter. No, I'm sorry. It says the tax rate will be 18% even prior to 1/1/2019, and post 1/1/2019, it assumes that it was clarificatory already by the amendment. So the circular says कि 1/1/2019 के बाद तो 18% ही रेट है क्योंकि एंट्री में ही चेंज आ गया था and there is no dispute. Before 1/1/2019 also it says कि rate 18% ही थी क्योंकि minerals is not goods. It is the leasing of mineral rights, mineral exploration rights is a service. और पर उन्होंने इसके लिए कोई proper reason नहीं दिया. The reason given is क्योंकि सारी services generally 18% पे tax होती है, and in service tax also the rate was 15.5%. Therefore, it should be taxable at 18%. They haven't given any reasoning why prior to 1/1/2019 it should be taxable at 18%. Now, what is इस क्लैरिफिकेशन से क्या एनॉमली हो रही है फ्यूचर के लिए? जिन लोगों ने 5% पे टैक्स पे किया था पहले, अब उनको भी रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली क्या दे विल आल्सो पे 18% टैक्स? अगर कोई डिमांड आती है तो even they have to pay the differential tax of 13%. This is a big question. And after that, after 1/1/2019 also, the dispute is there that whether the minerals are goods or not. We can always contest that minerals fall within the definition of goods, and so the rate of 5% will be applicable, not the rate of 18%, because if we look at the decisions in the previous regimes also, like there was a decision of Supreme Court in the case of Orient Paper Mills, where the definition of goods was discussed, and it said that royalty paid in respect of minerals extracted and removed from mines partake character of being movable. Because minerals जब हम extract कर लेते हैं वो movable हो जाते हैं, so even the royalty paid in its respect partakes the character of being movable. So और minerals खुद तो goods हैं ही because they themselves are movable. और goods की definition में it has been defined that goods means every kind of movable property other than money and securities. So since minerals are goods, and the court is also saying that royalty paid in respect of minerals after they are extracted, they partake the character of being movable. Therefore, the rate of tax applicable on this leasing or renting of mineral and exploration rights, that should be 5% and not 18%. So even after the circular, we can still contest for the rate of 5%. Another thing is circular is saying कि prior to 1/1/2019 also up 18% rate lagao instead of 5%. That can also be contested. These circulars are only clarificatory in nature. जो rule or law आता है that flows from the Notification Act and rules. So this is still a challenge and it can be contested in the court. Now, another amendment has come in respect of GST on admission to amusement parks. What was the entry before amendment? It said services by way of admission to amusement parks, including theme parks, water parks, joy rides, and ballet and all. The rate was 9%. And for admission to entertainment events or access to amusement facilities, including casinos, race clubs, sporting events like IPL, the rate was 14%. So दो entries थी, एक entry बात करी थी theme parks, water parks, ballet, etc. इसकी rate 9%. दूसरी entry बात करी थी entertainment events, amusement facilities, which include casinos, race clubs, etc. इस पे 14% rate थी. Now, what have they changed? They've given importance to these words, casinos and race clubs, और उसके हिसाब से they've split the entry and restructured the entry. So what do the other two entries say now? Services by way of admission to theme parks, water parks, and any other place. So these words, any other place, signify कि water parks या theme parks से related कोई भी और place है, कोई भी similar place है. All these places इनके admission की जो services है, and they have joy rides, merry-go-rounds, go-karting, all these things, or admission to a ballet. All these will be covered under the rate of 9%. And any other place which is not covered here and covered in 3A, that is services by way of admission to casinos or race clubs, or any place having casinos or race clubs. So this is how they've placed importance on the words casinos or race clubs. जहाँ भी casinos or race clubs का या तो वो casinos और race clubs खुद हैं या फिर कोई place है जहाँ पे casinos और race clubs हैं, then automatically the rate will go to 14%. Or sporting events like IPL will also fall in 28%. So इसके लिए एक exclusive entry हो गई है for IPL, casinos and race clubs. And for other places, theme parks and all, the rate is 9%. And these words, any other place, they have broadened the scope of this entry. Earlier here, only amusement parks word was there, including theme parks, water parks. Now, one thing which is missing in this entry is like rate for admission to other entertainment events. Here in the prior entry, services by way of admission to entertainment events. So entertainment events covered a lot of events. Say if you have a stand-up comedy show, it would be covered here. But now that stand-up comedy show, it does not fall into this entry also, and it does not fall in the second entry also. So on one side, they've broadened the scope by adding the words any other place, but then by removing the words entertainment even, they've also narrowed the scope, and there's this issue that entertainment events के लिए आप कौन सी rate लो. Then moving on to the next update, which is about merely establishment of distinct persons. These words have been explained. So what happens is export of services की definition दे रखी है IGST Act में, which gives 3-4 conditions, and only when you fulfill those conditions in a transaction that qualifies as an export of service. उसमें conditions हैं जैसे the service provider should be located in India, service recipient should be outside India, place of supply should be outside India, and another condition is this one. Supplier and recipient of service are not merely establishments of distinct person in accordance with explanation 1 in section 8. मतलब जो seller और buyer है, they are supplier and recipient of services है, they are not merely establishments of distinct person. मतलब ये ना हो कि वो almost same persons हैं और merely establishments of distinct person, बस entity different है, but primarily वो same है. By virtue of explanation 1 in section 8. अगर ऐसा है तो then that transaction does not qualify as export of service. तो ये merely establishment of distinct person कब मानी जाती हैं दो entities? It is, let us go through the explanation 1 in section 8. It says where a person has an establishment in India and any other establishment outside India, an establishment in a state or union territory and any other establishment outside that state or union territory, या फिर एक ही state और union territory में आपका एक establishment है और एक और दूसरा establishment भी है because of say वो another business vertical है, तो ये सब establishments या तो India में और outside India या फिर एक state और दूसरी state में या फिर same state में भी दो establishments हैं because उनके business verticals different है, तो all these establishments will be treated as establishments of distinct persons. Then there's another explanation which says a person carrying on business through a branch or an agency or representation office in any territory should be treated as having an establishment in that territory. मतलब किसी भी entity का अगर कोई branch office है या कोई agency और representational office है किसी भी territory में, तो वो branch office या agency office that will be treated as a separate establishment. So this is the meaning of words merely establishments of distinct person. ये सब although distinct नहीं हो, primarily company same हो, वो group companies हो या branch office हो उसी company का, but by virtue of this explanation they are establishments of distinct person. एक deeming fiction करके उन्हें create बोला गया है कि ये distinct persons है for the purpose of GST. So what was happening because of this explanation, that many transactions which could fall within the scope of export of services were not falling into export of services और उन सब पे tax लग रहा था. So what did this circular clarify? जब भी कोई transaction होता है दो entities के बीच में जिसमें one entity is in India and the another is outside India और दोनों different laws के अंडर में incorporate हुए हैं, that is India में जो entity है that is incorporated under the laws of India और जो entity outside India है वो outside India के laws के अंडर में incorporate हुई है, then these two particular entities will be treated as separate persons and not merely establishments of distinct persons. So by virtue of explanation in section 8, these two entities might fall into this classification of merely establishments of distinct person और इस वजह से वो export of service की definition से बाहर हो रही है. But now because of this clarification, if they are incorporated under separate laws of these countries, then they will not fall into this merely establishments of distinct persons. This circular is also supported by Gujarat High Court ruling in case of Linde Engineering India, which says that even in a service tax regime, when there was a subsidiary company incorporated in India and its holding company was outside India, which were under different laws of different countries, then they were establishments of distinct persons being different legal persons. So this analogy from service tax regime followed by Gujarat High Court, the same has been adopted by this circular. And there are a few illustrations which is being given in the circular. So say if there's a company A in India and there's a branch of company A in outside India, but they have been incorporated under the same laws. So will they be merely establishments of distinct persons? Yes, because they are incorporated under the same laws. So it won't be an export of service. Similarly, branch X of company Y in India, जो branch है वो इंडिया में है और कंपनी Y जो है वो आउटसाइड इंडिया है, बट अगेन जो मेन कंपनी है Y वो फॉरेन लॉ के अंडर में इनकॉर्पोरेट हुई है और उसकी जो ब्रांच X है इंडिया में, दैट इज ऑल्सो under the foreign law. So it is again a mere establishment of distinct person as per explanation, and therefore it is not an export of service. However, subsidiaries के case में at least what we see, company P India में है, the company Q जो उसकी subsidiary है company P की, that has been incorporated under the laws of say USA. So since they are incorporated under different laws, they won't be treated as establishments of distinct persons as per the clarification in this circular. And then this transaction will qualify as export of service. India में भी जो subsidiaries firm होती है foreign companies की generally, they are incorporated as a separate private limited company which is under the Indian Companies Act 2013. So in those cases, जो subsidiary है that is under the Indian law and the foreign company is the main foreign company, the principal company is under the foreign law. So in that case, it won't be an establishment of distinct person and therefore it will qualify as export of service. There was this AAR in case of civil and mortgage services INC. So this particular company, its head office was in USA and its branch office was in India. But then again, that branch office was created from, that was working under the head office of USA only, and that was under the, basically that was under the laws of USA only. So since the laws were different and it was falling within the scope of explanation 1 to section 8, so in this AR, it was said that it does not qualify as export of service. So this is one example of AR which was denying the benefit. There were other advanced rulings also which were there and they were denying the benefit in case of subsidiaries also. So at least now this circular clarifies the subsidiaries ki case mein, which is under a different law, the transaction will qualify as export of service. Now, moving on to the next update. आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन अब कुछ सर्टेन केसेस में मैंडेटरी कर दिया है. So these are the 3 cases जब आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन के बिना you won't be able to do all these things. One is you won't be able to apply for refund under Rule 96, which gives you refund in case of IGST paid on goods exported out of India. जब आप export करते हो with payment of tax and you claim refund of that tax, that refund will not be available. You won't be able to apply for it if your Aadhaar is not authenticated. Then any application of refund that you file by way of form RFD1, that you won't be able to file if Aadhaar authentication is not being done. Similarly, application for revocation of cancellation of registration, this cannot be filed without Aadhaar authentication. Now, Aadhaar हमें किसका authenticate करना है, कौन सी entity में? If it's a proprietorship firm, Aadhaar authentication would be for the proprietor. In case of HF Karta, company में managing director, and so on. For AOP, we can say member of managing committee, trust में trustee, partnership में partner. The law also goes to this extent in saying कि अगर आपके पास आधार available नहीं है, then what you have to do in case of new registrations, you won't be able to take the registration अगर आपके पास आधार available नहीं है और आपने उसके आधार के documents का proof that you have applied for Aadhaar number, if you don't give that proof, then you won't be able to get the registration also. So Aadhaar authentication is being made mandatory to this extent, and it is that important now. You will have to give your Aadhaar enrollment ID slip, bank passbook with your photograph, and some ID proof from voter identity card or passport or driving license. So these things have to be given at the time of registration if Aadhaar is not available. And then once you get the registration and you get your Aadhaar card, then after the Aadhaar authentication, after that Aadhaar authentication has to be done within 30 days of Aadhaar allotment to you. Then the notification also says that it shall not apply in some cases. So these are some special category of persons where Aadhaar need not be authenticated. It is in case of where the person is not a citizen of India, या central state government का कोई department है, local authority, PSU, etc. या फिर कुछ specialized agencies, United Nations की embassies, consulates, etc. Now there are some changes in the rates of services. So there are a lot of exemptions given to charitable entities and religious trusts. So all those exemption in all those exemption entries, the words mentioned are where the charitable entity or trust is registered under section 12AA. Now we all know that Income Tax Act में 12AB के under में registration होने लग गया है trust का. So simply they have added this section 12AB wherever 12AA is mentioned. Then this changes there that when temporary or permanent when there is a temporary or permanent transfer of IPR rights with respect to information technology software or any other thing, the tax rate will be 18%. Earlier it was 12% for other goods, and for software it was 18%. Now for all IPR rights it is 18%. So the tax base is being enhanced. For all IPR rights, the rate is moving from 12% to 18%. Then there's a major impact on printing industry because the rate for printing of all goods which fall under chapter 48 or 49, and for even goods such as newspaper books, braille books, journals, and periodicals, which are the major products of printing industry, the rate has gone up from 12% to 18%. Then services being provided by and to the FIFA Football Association and its subsidiaries directly or indirectly for any of the events under FIFA U17 Women's World Cup 2020. ये अभी हुआ नहीं है, whenever it is rescheduled. तो अगर इनको कोई services provide की है या इनसे कोई service ली जाती है, then that will be exempt. Similarly, services by into Asian Football Confederation and its subsidiaries for AFC Women's Asia Cup will be exempt. Then there was this entry for exemption on transport of goods by vessel and air from India to outside India. ये exemption 30th September 2021 तक available था. अब इसे 30th September 2022 तक extend कर दिया गया है. फॉर्म ITC 04 इस फॉर्म को लेके बहुत लोग परेशान थे because Dates were also extended multiple times, and there was no clarity as to how to file this form. Even the utility on the portal was not proper to file this form. So now they have permanently given relaxation in filing this form as follows. They said that for turnover greater than 5 crore in previous year, the frequency of form filing should be every 6 months. और कब कब आपको फॉर्म फाइल करना है? It would be for April to September one time and then for October to March. पहले ये frequency क्या थी? Quarterly. And that was for everyone. There was no turnover wise limit. And for less than 5 crore turnover in previous financial year, now that form has been done away with, it is not required to be filed at all. Then there are some rate changes. There were a lot of rate changes through the press release and the circulars and notifications that followed. I'm just discussing the main ones. So in case of tamarind seeds, it was falling under the head seeds of a kind used for sowing. So if जो भी seeds अब चाहे आप उन्हें sow करने के लिए use कर रहे हो या नहीं कर रहे हो, the rate was 5%. But now from 1/10/2021, the rate will be GST rate will be 5% if it is not supplied as seed for sowing. और उससे पहले from 1st July 2017 to 30th September, it was nil. But अगर अब आप उसको चाहे आप पहले उसे सो करने के लिए यूज कर रहे थे या नहीं कर रहे थे, rate was nil. From 1st October, GST will be applicable at 5% in tamarind seeds अगर आप उन्हें सो करने के लिए यूज नहीं कर रहे हो. So they have carved out this particular part. Then fresh fruits and nuts के केस में fresh nuts हमेशा exempt रहे हैं, dried taxable रहे हैं at 5% or 12%. So there was a lot of confusion कि which nuts fall within the scope of fresh nuts and which fall within the scope of dried nuts. तो fresh का, chill का, frozen और dried इन सब का meaning discuss किया है circular में. Fresh has been said कि जो आप directly pluck करके ला रहे हो, those fruits are fresh fruits. Chill fruits, आप fresh fruits को ही chill कर रहे हो without any treatment or process. You're just chilling them. So fresh and chill fruits will be exempt. They will fall under the scope of fresh fruits. However, if the fruits have been frozen या फिर उन्हें dry किया गया है, तो then they are said to be processed because freeze आप करते हो उनको heat करने के बाद, उन पे treatment करने के बाद you freeze them. And then dried nuts also, over the period of time, you dry them in a particular way so that they can be preserved for a longer period of time. So then they are not in their natural plugged form. So in this case, in case of frozen and dried, when frozen and dried processes are carried out, then those nuts will be taxable at either 5% or 12% as the case. Again, in case of coconut, when you take the fresh coconut or even the dried coconut, the whole coconut, that is exempt. But when you take the copra from the market, it is taxable at 5%. Copra क्या होता है? After you remove the shell of the coconut और जो अंदर का white part होता है, you remove that with or without the shell, then that is the copra. So if you take that, that is taxable at 5%. Then you have henna powder and leaves. The circular says that they will be classified under vegetable products, not elsewhere classified, because the explanatory notes say इसमें कौन-कौन से vegetable products आते हैं जो dyeing में भी use होते हैं primarily. Then in case of scented supari, it is sweet supari is taxable at 18% since it falls under betel nut product. Now there are some other clarifications. जब कोई interstate stock transfer होता था goods का, so in case of petroleum operations, so there was a concessional rate available import के case में. तो import के बाद जब भी stock transfer होता था between two entities, between say head office and the subsidiary, So a certificate, essentiality certificate had to be issued. तो स्टॉक ट्रांसफर के केस में क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रही थी? स्टॉक ट्रांसफर इज बीइंग मेड ऑन अ डेली बेसिस और इंपोर्ट आप एक बार बल्क में करके रख लेते हो. सो the industry asked that whether this import essentiality certificate is required every time the stock transfer is being made. So now this circular clarifies that no, you can just take the essentiality certificate one time at the time of import, and it is not required at every time of stock transfer. However, the importer has to maintain records for nexus between goods transferred and the description in certificate. जो भी goods transfer हो रहे हैं, stock transfer हो रहा है, उनका नेक्सस होना चाहिए उस सर्टिफिकेट में जो गुड्स डिस्क्राइब्ड है उसके साथ. देन मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन, एक्सटर्नल बैटरीज पे क्या होगी, दैट वाज बीइंग डिस्कस्ड. सो एक्सटर्नल बैटरीज जब यूपीएस और इन्वर्टर के साथ सेल होती है, इट कैन बी सेड टू बी अ कंपोजिट सप्लाई. तो फिर उस पे यूपीएस और जो इन्वर्टर की रेट है 18%, दैट शुड बी एप्लीकेबल going by the principles of composite supply. However, what is the circular saying and what was the confusion prevailing? That rate for battery is 28%, rate for UPS and inverter is 18%. So what when they are sold together? Agar if they are being sold together and in the invoice they have been mentioned separately, then you can charge 18% rate on UPS and 28% on battery. And the circular is also saying that batteries, since they're capable of being sold separately, therefore the rate on battery should always be 28%. However, it's a view that, we can take a view, and I do not agree with the clarification provided by the circular, because in case of composite supplies, jahan pe प्रिंसिपल सप्लाई इज ऑफ यूपीएस एंड इन्वर्टर और उसकी वजह से आप साथ में बैटरी सेल कर रहे हो, नॉट सेपरेटली, तो फिर जो यूपीएस की रेट है विच इज अ प्रिंसिपल सप्लाई वो अप्लाई होनी चाहिए, सिंस दिस विल बी अ कंपोजिट सप्लाई. इफ द बैटरी इज बीइंग सोल्ड एक्सक्लूसिवली तब उस पे रेट 28% होगी. हाउएवर व्हेन इट इज सोल्ड विद द यूपीएस और इन्वर्टर, it should be a composite supply and the rate applicable overall should be 18%, जहाँ पे आप उनकी प्राइस भी क्लब करके दिखाओगे इनवॉइस. So the circular, although it says कि 28% होनी चाहिए बैटरी में, but still I believe that this view can be taken and it is a composite supply. In case of solar power projects, what happened was जो भी ये power projects की cost होती थी उसमें there was a portion of goods and there was a portion of services, because जो भी parts होते थे वो assemble करके solar plant is erected, और जो solar plant erect करते हैं या उसके लिए जो erection services या installation services हो रही हैं, that is also a part of the whole project. So there were two elements, one of goods and one of services in the whole project. Now there was always a doubt that whether it will be a composite supply, और क्योंकि major portion हमेशा goods का रहता है, service सिर्फ installation part से related होती है, so it will be a composite supply, and the rate of goods, which is generally 5% in case of solar projects. जो goods इसमें use होते हैं solar projects में, they are mainly chargeable at 5%. So the rate on whole project would be 5%, or the rate on portion of goods should be 5% and the rate on service portion should be 18%. So this was the confusion prevailing earlier. To clarify this, with effect from 1/1/2019, a ratio was prescribed in the entries जो taxable rates का circular, जो taxable rates का notification है, उसमें this clarification, this entry was inserted, this ratio was inserted, कि पूरे project में 70% would be of the goods and 30% portion would be related to services. So 30% पे 18% की rate applicable होगी, और 70% goods वाले portion पे 5% rate would be applicable. Now industry was seeking a clarification from the government कि before 1/1/2019 what should they do? Should they apply this ratio before also, or this is applicable only from 1/1/2019? because this particular ratio was introduced in that tax entry from 1/1/2019. So circular has clarified that this particular ratio can be followed from inception, that is 1/7/2017 itself. However, the anomaly still is that this particular thing is flowing from a circular. However, it should have flowed from a notification. GST Council की meeting में ये discuss हुआ. But then if they wanted this ratio to apply from 1/7/2017, they should have notified it through a circular or by way of amendment in the Act or rules. When this is coming from a circular, the question will always arise in the future that whether circular can state a new law or whether a circular can say that this ratio will apply retrospectively. So there will always be a question on its taxation. And then circular in a way is also punishing the compliant taxpayers who paid the tax at a higher rate in the past. And now the circular is giving a benefit to the taxpayers who have not paid the tax till date to follow this ratio of 70-30%. So circular is biased in this regard, and therefore the circular can be contested on this point. Then there's this clarification related to GST rate on fiber drums. What does it say? Boxes or cartons आते हैं which are corrugated or non-corrugated. Corrugated means those boxes are with folds from a. जो cartons होते हैं, they are fold from a particular angle, and you can make that box by using those folds. So the ones which have folds, they are corrugated boxes. The ones which do not have these folds are non-corrugated boxes. So these particular fiber drums, they are partially corrugated. So there in the tariff, there is a separate rate for corrugated boxes and a separate rate for non-corrugated boxes. तो जो ये fiber drums हैं जो partially corrugated हैं, इनके लिए again confusion existed as to whether the GST rate of 12% will be applicable, which is for corrugated, or 18%, which is for non-corrugated. What the GST Council has done, they said that with effect from 1st October, we are changing the rate to 18% for all, whether corrugated or non-corrugated. So now the rate for fiber drums as well as corrugated, non-corrugated, all kinds of boxes and cartons, it will be 18%. They've also said that prior to this amendment, if any tax has been paid at 12% on fiber drums already, no further demand or recovery would be made. And they've also clarified कि अगर आपने 18% टैक्स पे कर दिया है जो ज्यादा है और आप 12% मान रहे थे तो कोई रिफंड भी नहीं मिलेगा. So they've clarified both the things कि ना तो कोई डिमांड होगी इससे रिलेटेड, ना इससे रिलेटेड कोई रिफंड होगा. And for future you follow rate of 18%. Now there's a new concept of cloud kitchens which came up in the recent last 2-3 years. What happens in cloud kitchens? जो भी brands हैं, suppose for example we say McD, KFC, all these things, they don't have any outlet but a central place where 20-30 kitchens are running. McD की kitchen है उस जगह, KFC की kitchen है, but उनका outlet नहीं है where you can go and sit and order. So it's just a kitchen of 20-30 brands. Suppose here also in case of there's this Rebel Foods, which has recently, got funding also, and their 22 kitchens are running. Their Bhairu's Biryani brand is there, Fasos is there. So this concept of cloud kitchen has come up in last 2-3 years, and the kitchen is there. They just prepare the food, whatever you order. The orders are taken through calls only, and there's no place where you can go, sit and place the order and eat. But you can do a takeaway from these kitchens. So now the issue was what should be the GST rate for the food supplied by these cloud kitchens. Should it fall within the scope of restaurant services or not? Now for this, let us see the definition of restaurant service. Restaurant service has been defined as in this notification 11/2017. What does it say? It means supply by way of or as part of any service of goods, being food or any other article for human consumption, or any drink provided by a restaurant, eating joint, including mess, canteen, whether for consumption on or away from the premises. So, restaurant services include what? अब कोई भी goods, being food, या फिर कोई भी article that is for consumption or drink, or any drink, आप provide कर रहे हो, कहीं भी provide कर रहे हो, whether it is a mess, canteen, at the premises or away from premises, then those services will fall within the scope of restaurant services. Now the explanatory notes to this tariff, this particular entry of tariff, they also say that takeaway services, door delivery services, room services, they're all included within the scope of restaurant services. So even the circular has clarified now that the takeaway services from cloud kitchens, they will qualify as restaurant service. They will fall within the scope of restaurant services, and hence GST rate of 5% without IPC will apply to cloud kitchens. However, this clarification is not very proper because in past also there was this judgment of, this is a recent judgment in fact of Madras High Court. It was in case of Anjappar Chettinad, which says that जो takeaway services हैं, उनमें there's no element of service. You're just buying the food, which is equivalent to sale of goods. Further, GST में भी Schedule 2 में it puts a deeming section कि आप कोई भी supply of food कर रहे हो as part of any service, then that will be deemed as service irrespective of whether any cooking or preparation is involved. तो अगर हम लॉजिकली भी इस ट्रांजैक्शन को देखें तो क्लाउड किचन्स जो फूड सप्लाई कर रही हैं, दैट इज यू जस्ट टेकिंग अवे दैट फूड एंड यू नॉट सिटिंग देयर हैविंग इट और ऑर्डरिंग इट एंड नोबडी इज preparing it as per you. You have just placed the order through a call and you're just buying the food from there. So it should not fall within the scope of restaurant service as such. Rather, it should fall within the scope of sale of food, and that rate should be applicable. However, the circular has said that GST rate of 5% will be applicable, and these will be within the scope of restaurant services. So again, this is by way of a circular, so it can be contested. Another interesting thing, in case of ice cream parlors, the circular says that parlors sell already manufactured ice cream and they are not engaged in cooking at any stage. The restaurant service, which involves the aspect of cooking and preparing during the course of providing service, वो ice cream parlors की case में है ही नहीं. And since it is not there in ice cream parlors, therefore it will not qualify as restaurant service. So उन पे 5% concessional rate applicable नहीं होगी. GST would be applicable at 18%. However, looking at the modern day ice cream parlors, जहाँ पे आप जाते हो and they prepare the ice cream for you, they prepare the ice cream rolls for you, they put dry fruits and nuts, they customize the ice cream as per you, जहाँ पे वो toppings भी आपकी choice के according लगाते हैं. Because parlors are meant for, today modern day ice cream parlors are meant for that you customize the ice cream as per your choice. So there we can see that a service element is there. So that would then fall under the scope of restaurant service and rate of 5% can be applicable. So जहाँ cloud kitchens की case में circular is saying that it should fall within scope of restaurant service, जबकि logically वहाँ पे it's simply a takeaway and sale of food. In case of ice cream parlors, the circular is saying that it is not a restaurant service because ice cream is just being sold. So this is not very clear and not very acceptable. And this also goes against this judgment of Madras High Court. So we can always contest this. Ice cream parlors have been suffering from this anomaly, and then you can also see this banner literally see this banner in outside some ice cream parlors which say that we are charging 18% rate because there's no element of service and we're just selling the ice cream to do away with this anomaly. But this confusion is still there, and the circular has circularness confusion को और बढ़ा ही दिया है rather than solving it. So let us see what happens. But one thing we can keep in mind that circulars are, since they're clarificatory, they can be contested. Now there are some other clarifications. In case where e-invoice is generated and it has a IRN and you have a QR code on that, then while transportation of goods, you need not carry the physical invoice. You can show the e-invoice to this proper officer, and then the proper officer cannot force you for showing you the physical copy of invoice. Then refund of accumulated ITC under section 54(3) is denied in case of goods subjected to export duty. So what was the department doing? जिन भी cases में export duty लग रही थी, plus जिन भी cases में export duty exempt थी या nil rated थी, उन cases में भी department refund deny कर रहा था, because department considered कि अगर किसी particular item के आगे export duty के column में exempt भी लिखा है या nil rate भी लिखी है, that is also a rate, and that item is then subject to export duty, और उसका refund फिर वो allow नहीं कर रहे थे. So the circular is clarifying कि denial उन्हीं cases में होगा जहाँ पे export duty is actually paid and not where the export duty is nil rated or it is exempt. Now हमने देखा था Aadhaar authentication is being made mandatory in certain cases and in cases of new registration. So in case of when you furnish the details of your bank account for registration, or if you've already furnished in case of old registrations, now what is being done that your bank account should be linked with your PAN, and in case of individuals, that PAN should also be linked with Aadhaar. So all this linkage with PAN and Aadhaar is being made compulsory and important from time to time. And details of this linkage have to be furnished within 45 days of registration or due date of first 3B, whichever is earlier. However, this rule is yet to be notified. It has come up in notification number 35, but it is yet to be notified. Then again, there's a change in rule 59. 59(6) में जो था कि if you have not furnished the GSTR 3B for preceding 2 months, then you cannot file GSTR 1. That has been changed to 1 month. So आपने अब एक भी month की preceding month की GSTR 3B file नहीं की है, so GSTR 1 shall not be allowed to be filed. This change will also take place from 1/1/2022. So it is not yet been notified. It is a future reminder. Then supply of mentha oil by unregistered person to registered person is being brought under the reverse charge net. Section 9(3) जो है CGST Act का. Which certifies certain transactions and certain class of persons where the tax will be chargeable on reverse charge basis. उसमें supply of mentha oil has been notified. And further, it has also been said that export of mentha oil will only be allowed against LUT, and then consequently ITC will be refunded. This also has not been notified yet. It is a future amendment. But from this, we can see that the working capital for the industry will increase. एक तो आपको RCM पे tax pay करना पड़ रहा है, and then you are not able to claim the ITC of that also immediately, because they have said कि इसका you have to do this under the LUT route only and claim refund of ITC in future. Then in case of fortified rice kernels, when they are supplied to ICDs or similar or under a similar scheme, जो कि central government या state government ने approve की है, then these rice kernels will be taxable at 5%. So this is to promote the supply of rice kernels in ICDs or under the government schemes. That is why a concessional rate is being provided. और इसमें condition क्या डाली है? You have to produce a certificate to the effect that such goods have been distributed free to the economically weaker sections of the society. Then rate changes ही हैं इसमें. Some of the important ones, brick kilns जो हैं, they are being brought under a special composition scheme where rate of 6% will be applicable without ITC, और अगर आप scheme में नहीं जाते हो, it will be 12%. Threshold limit इसकी 20 lakh है, मतलब up to 20 lakh you can go for the scheme, otherwise you cannot go. This again will be applicable from 1st April 2022. Services by way of grant of national permits to good carriages on payment of fees, this has been exempted. E-commerce operators जिन पे आज तक टैक्स की लाइबिलिटी रेडियो टैक्सीज या कैब सर्विसेज के केस में थी, नाउ उनका स्कोप उन पे लाइबिलिटी ज्यादा गवर्नमेंट इज पुटिंग मोर लाइबिलिटी ऑन देम विद इफेक्ट फ्रॉम 1/1/2022. So when e-commerce operators are providing restaurant services like all these people, Zomato, Swiggy, or they are providing transport of passenger services by any type of motor vehicle. So now the words used are by any type of motor vehicle. Isme radio taxis like Ola, Uber, they were already covered. Now they are extending the scope to any other type of motor vehicle. So if say e-commerce operators are running shuttle buses or any other vehicle, then also the tax will be the tax liability will fall on the e-commerce operators. One good and important amendment that has been proposed by the 45th GST Council meeting, although the notification and circular for this has not come up till now, but this is a very important amendment proposed by the meeting. It says जो interest charge होगा net cash liability पे ही होगा. Section 50 subsection 3 में इसका amendment हो चुका है, but it will be further amended. That was from a prospective date. Now it will be amended retrospectively with effect from 1st July 2017 itself, to say that interest will be only on the net cash liability and not on the gross cash liability. Further to this, apart from the gross and net thing, इन्होंने यहाँ पे ये भी add कर दिया है कि interest is to be paid by the taxpayer only on the ineligible ITC availed and utilized, not an ineligible ITC availed. तो अभी तक जो हम interest बचाने की कोशिश करते थे, या taxpayer always used to say कि हमने ITC लिया तो है, गलत ले लिया, but हमने उसको यूटिलाइज तो किया ही नहीं आज तक की डेट में, so why should we pay the interest? So this is a very good move and step by the government, that the interest will be applicable only on the ineligible ITC that you wrongly availed and you have not you've utilized it. अगर आपने वो यूटिलाइज नहीं की है तो फिर interest will not be applicable even if you have availed that ITC wrongly and that is ineligible. Then further, what did they say? That interest in such cases, अगर ineligible ITC avail का केस है और उसको आपने utilize भी कर लिया है, तो in those cases then interest will be applicable from 1st July itself. In this thing we should note one thing. This is a aggressive view which is there in the community and among the professionals, but this view is there. So अभी तक section 50 में क्या है? Interest की demand is only on two things. When you delay the payment of GST, मतलब आपको जो GST पे करना है वो आप लेट पे कर रहे हो, that is आपने output liability delay कर दी, या फिर there is a mismatch of ITC on account of mismatch procedure prescribed under section 42 and 43. अब section 42 43 के अंदर में जो mismatch procedure है, that was a part of the mechanism of GSTR 1 2 and 3 जब GSTR 2 prescribe हुआ था और defer नहीं किया था. So since GSTR 2 has not been enabled till now, that mismatch procedure of ITC is not effective, and you cannot say that section 42 and 43 is not being followed. So section 50 में जो दूसरी interest की liability है regarding mismatch of ITC, वो तो अभी effective भी नहीं हुई है, और जो interest liability on account of delay in output liability वो भी इस केस को cover नहीं कर रही है, that is wrong utilization of ITC और ineligible ITC आपने avail कर लिया है तो. So basically there is no interest levy if you have, even if you have, you know, wrongly availed the ITC and wrongly utilized it. But जो इस circular में आया है, that इस press release में आया है, that is crystallizing the liability of interest with effect from 1st July itself at 18%. So in a way, the press release, and we will see in future the notification or circular by whatever way, this is a fresh liability of interest being created. This is a very aggressive view because जो mismatch of ITC है उस पे interest की levy है, not on ineligible ITC. This is an aggressive view, but then this is there, and इस circular, इस press release से ये 18% liability crystallize हो रही है from 1st July itself. Then the inverted duty structure, which is there in case of footwear and textile industry, that is proposed to be corrected with effect from 1st January 2022. इसके लिए अभी तक कोई notification circular आया नहीं है, but a group of ministers constitute कर दिया है, setup वो हो भी गया है, it was in the news a few days back. And in this group of ministers, there are the state ministers of various states. They are discussing the rate changes and the impact on these industries, and they will further decide that whether the output rate should be, the rate should be increased or the rate on key inputs should be changed so as to balance this inverted duty rate structure. The issue is कि अगर वो output की rate बढ़ा देते हैं तो ये products footwear और textile की दोनों costly हो जाएंगे for the consumers, since they are generally B2C transactions. Then there was this change. Unutilized balance in CGST and IGST cash ledger may be allowed to be transferred between distinct persons. जिन भी entities का PAN number same है, that is they are related entities, और उनका GST number might be different, but they are based on the same PAN. Such entities will be able to transfer the balance of unutilized CGST and IGST without going through the refund procedure. So this is a welcome change because कहीं भी किसी भी entity में unutilized balance रखा है, so they can always transfer it to the other entity who can utilize it. Now अभी तक हम GSTR 1 पे late fees generally नहीं pay कर रहे थे, but now they have proposed that GSTR 1, if you have not filed timely, then the next open GSTR 3B, उसमें आपकी late fees related to GSTR 1 that will be auto-populated and it has to be paid. Rule 36(4), the rule that prescribes the limit of, earlier it was 10%, then it was 5%. कि GSTR 2A में जितनी भी transactions, जितना भी ITC available है, suppose it's ₹100, then you can take ITC of ₹105 as per Rule 36(4). This Rule 36(4) is being proposed to be amended again. और इसमें क्या होगा, another document जो GSTR 2B अब effective हो चुका है, so उसके basis पे amendment propose किया है that whatever ITC is available in GSTR 2B, only that you will be able to claim in GSTR 3B. So this amendment will flow from section 16 to section 16 जो credit की eligibility का section है, उसमें section 2AA has been proposed, but it has been already inserted in fact, but it has not been notified yet. So whenever section 2AA is made effective, then rule 36(4) will also be amended to say that whatever ITC is available in GSTR 2B, you can take only that ITC in your 3B. You will be eligible in fact by section 16 to take only that ITC. So what we can observe here, that even the buffer of 5% that was there till now from rule 36(4), that will also be removed once this proposed change is notified and made effective. Now, about the GST on services supplied by contract manufacturers to brand owners for manufacture of alcoholic liquor. Alcoholic liquor के केस में क्या होता है, job work होता है generally, and the job worker is giving services to the main manufacturer for supply of alcoholic liquor. So इसके rate classification में again issue था. What was the issue? This particular entry in notification number 11, this was there, services by way of job work in relation to all food and food products falling under chapter 1 to 22, and the rate prescribed there was 5%. So majorly all the industry players were paying tax at this rate of 5%. However, the issue was due to various advanced rulings and the issue in industry and from the department side, from the revenue side, the issue was that alcoholic liquor does not fall within the definition of food and food products. Therefore, on this job work related to alcoholic liquor, the rate should not be 5%, rather it should be a higher rate. Now, what has the circular clarified? Circular also says that the expression food and food products does not include alcoholic beverage, and alcohol cannot be considered as food in common parlance. So the GST rate would be 18% and not 5%. Now again, there's a problem with this clarification on the circular. What is the problem? अगर alcohol food के ambit में नहीं आ रही है, तब भी there was a residuary entry for job worker, which said कि in sub job worker any other job work उसकी rate 12% थी, ना कि 18%. However, this circular straight away said that the rate would be 18% for job work in relation to alcoholic liquor, which is not good. Further, notification में एक नई entry ही insert कर दी है, notification number 11 में 26 ICA, which says services by way of job work in relation to manufacture of alcoholic liquor should be taxable at 18%. So, because of the insertion of new entry in the notification, this thing is fine that in future the job work related to alcoholic liquor will be taxable at 18%. But for the past period at least, even if alcohol does not fall within the ambit of food, it should be taxable at 12%, which was the rate for residuary job work, and not 18% straight away as randomly set by the circular. Now, this was all about the major updates that were flowing from the 45th GST Council meeting. Most of them I have covered. However, a few rate changes and some rate changes relating to goods which is where the rate has just been increased or decreased. That I've skipped and discussed the important ones. Now, apart from these changes, let us have a look at few case laws. So recently there was this judgment of VKC Footsteps pronounced by the Supreme Court. VKC Footsteps का जजमेंट पहले हाई कोर्ट में भी जा चुका है और उसका कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग there was this judgment from Madras High Court in case of Transo Telenos Troy Afghans. Both were contrary judgments. Both were from High Courts. One was by Gujarat High Court. One was from Madras High Court. इसमें issue क्या है? Let us understand that. Section 54(3) जो कि refund allow करते हैं. It says a registered person may claim refund of any unutilized input tax credit at the end of any tax period. So section 54 जो आपको refund allow कर रहा है of unutilized ITC और उसमें आगे there are 2 provisos. So we need to note the importance of each and every word in this section to understand the case laws. So section 54 के main part में may claim refund of any unutilized ITC. Any unutilized ITC में ITC means every ITC, be it of goods or of services. So section 54 का main part that is allowing you to claim refund of any ITC, any unutilized ITC, be it of goods or services. Now let us move forward. Proviso क्या कहता है इसका? Proviso says कि no refund of unutilized ITC shall be allowed in cases other than zero rated supplies made without payment of tax, or the second limb is जहाँ पे credit has accumulated on account of rate of tax on inputs being higher than rate of tax on output supplies. This is the case of inverted duty structure again. तो inverted duty structure के केस में जहाँ पे unutilized ITC का refund आप claim कर रहे हो, वहाँ पे proviso says that unutilized ITC shall be allowed in cases where credit is accumulated on account of rate of tax on inputs being higher than rate of tax. यहाँ पे section ने proviso ने क्या किया? सिर्फ inputs word use किया है और input services नहीं किया. Input tax credit word भी use नहीं किया. So it is, we cannot say that it includes both goods and services. The word used is inputs. But if we look at the drafting of this section carefully, जो main part है section का वो बोल रहा है कि आप ITC का credit claim करो, वो goods का भी हो सकता है, services का भी हो सकता है. और जो बाद वाली proviso में है, this is only a condition. मतलब eligibility आपकी पूरी है, आप पूरा input tax credit का refund claim कर सकते हो. Condition उसके लिए क्या है कि अगर आप inverted duty structure में fall कर रहे हो तो आप claim कर सकते हो. So condition you are fulfilling, you have a case of inverted duty structure. वो goods की case में आपका that is fine. So condition you are fulfilling, and once you fulfill this condition, you should be able to claim refund of the whole ITC of goods as well as services. This should be read only as a condition and this as the main provision. However, what the courts are reading or what is the confusion, this also is being read as the main part. The courts have interpreted it in the manner that unutilized ITC का refund आपको इन्हीं 2 cases में allow होगा and not in any other case. This proviso is being read strictly and not as the main part. So आपको इन्हीं 2 cases में अगर refund allow होगा तो refund only on account of inputs allow होगा. So refund is allowed of what? Basically unutilized ITC as per main part, goods plus services. Condition बोलता है, condition बोलती कि inputs आपका inverted duty structure होना चाहिए because of inputs, rate on inputs being higher than rate of tax on output supplies. So this is a main part, this is condition. But if we go to rule 89(5) जो इसका corresponding rule है, इसमें formula क्या दे रखा है refund का? It says turnover of inverted rated supply of goods and services into net ITC divided by adjusted total turnover minus tax payable on such inverted rated supply. तो here the word net ITC उसको further define कर रखा है and it shall mean input tax credit available on inputs only. So even the formula is considering only the inputs. The interesting part is ये formula initially जब inception से आया था from 1st July 2017 तब net ITC की definition में input services भी था. However, जब ये interpretation लिया गया कि proviso is the main part and it should not be read as a condition but as a restriction, तब से net ITC के formula को भी change कर दिया और यहाँ से input services हटा के it is only inputs. So now the revenue tried to make it clear from this formula by changing this formula कि आपको refund सिर्फ inputs का allow होगा, not of input services. Now, VKC footsteps में Gujarat High Court said that it should be allowed because what the section is allowing is unutilized ITC का refund and not only the refund of unutilized inputs. However, in Madras High Court, they took a contrary view. Now, what the Supreme Court says, Supreme Court has upheld the decision of Madras High Court. And it is against the assessee saying that refund will be only for the inputs part and not for both. What were the arguments? Even if the judgment is against us, we can always have a look at the arguments and how the court has given the decision to see that how a particular case should be contested in future and what all arguments should you take care of so that the court can be convinced. So in this case, arguments क्या लिए गए? Assessee took the argument that Parliament का intention हमेशा refund दोनों पे allow करना था because it has used the words unutilized ITC and not unutilized input tax credit in respect of inputs only. But इसके against court clarified that clear intention of Parliament was to grant refund only in 2 cases, which is जो 2 cases proviso में दे रखे. That is why it has used the words no refund should be available in cases other than in the starting part of the proviso. जो proviso है it should says allowed in case no refund should be allowed in cases other than. So proviso को restriction के way में पढ़ा गया rather than condition के way में by the Supreme Court. Then a plea of assessee made a plea that uniform treatment should be given to goods and services. However, on this point, the court said that although GST law came with the view that goods and services will always be on an equal footing. However, it is not possible that Parliament can frame all the laws immediately and give equal treatment in all cases to goods and services. It will happen only gradually and progressively. Then assessee also took the plea that the word inputs should be constituted to mean inputs as well as input services in general sense, in the interest of the assessee and in the interest of taxpayers at large. However, court read it literally and said that when input and input services have been defined separately in the act itself, then there is no point to say that inputs will include input services. Then again, refund आपको दोनों का available होना चाहिए, inputs का भी और input services का भी. Court said it is not a constitutional right. Counsel assessee argued that it is a matter of constitutional right and under Article 14 it should be given to everyone. Refund claim is a right under Article 14 of the Constitution. However, the court said that it is a matter of statutory prescription. It is up to the Parliament to allow refund of a particular thing or not, and it is not infringing the constitutional right at all. So the conclusion was that Section 54.3, the first proviso to Section 54.3 is restrictive in scope and it is not just a condition. मतलब उसमें proviso में inputs is written, so refund will only be in respect of inputs. Since first proviso to 54.3 is a restriction and not condition, therefore जो ये प्ली थी कि रूल 89(5) is against section 54(3) and it is ultra vires section 54(3). That plea was also not considered, and in fact the court said that it is within the meaning of section 54(3). Rule 89(5) is well within the wires of section 54(3). And finally, it held the refund to be inadmissible. One good thing which the Supreme Court said, that this formula of refund prescribed in Rule 89, there's an anomaly in this formula, because here in this part where net ITC is taking into account only inputs, however, the portion that you're subtracting from it, tax payable on such inverted rated supply of goods and services, here both the things are being included, goods as well as services. Now this anomaly we can have a look at what is actually the anomaly from this example. So there are two scenarios. In first scenario, the taxpayer is having only the turnover of inverted rate structure. In another scenario, he has other turnover also, and inverted rate turnover related to inverted rate structure also. So say if the value of supply of goods having inverted rated structure is 50 lakhs in both the cases, and without inverted rated structure, it is 50 lakh in this case and nil in this case. Then the adjusted total turnover for the purpose of refund formula is 50 lakh in this case and 1 crore in this case. Adjusted total turnover is this amount, जिससे हम ITC का proportion ले रहे हैं. So GST payable at 18% in turnover. जो inverted rate structure के अलावा turnover है, उस पे GST is 9 lakh in this case and nil in this case. Then ITC on inputs availed and ITC on input services availed. We've taken these figures for illustration. So now if we compute the refund on the basis of these figures, it would be net ITC, that is 3 lakh on inputs into this value over the adjusted total turnover, that is 50 lakhs, minus the output tax payable on inverted turnover, which is 2,50,000, this figure. So the refund comes out to be 50,000 in this case. And in the other scenario, the refund comes out to be 50,000, where net ITC has been taken as 6 lakh, again on inputs only, into the value upon the adjusted total turnover, and minus again the output tax payable on inverted rate turnover, that is 2,50,000. So what is the anomaly here? यहाँ पे 50,000 का जो ITC है input services से related, वो ना तो taxpayer avail कर पाया, ना ही उसका refund मिला, because refund has been restricted by the section and rule, and it has been clarified also. Supreme Court has also given this decision. So ये जो ITC services का है 50,000, इसका ना तो हमें refund मिला, ना ही ये set off हो सका. And in this case, the ITC, in this scenario where there is a turnover of both inverted rate structure and other turnover, यहाँ पे ITC of input services that can be set off. However, यहाँ पे that is being considered in the subtraction part, whereas it is not being considered in the portion of net ITC. So this anomaly is there. जहाँ पे आपका inverted rate का structure है solely, वहाँ पे input services का आपका जितना भी ITC है that is going waste, because ना तो उसका refund मिल रहा है, ना तो उसका refund मिल रहा है, ना को आप सेट ऑफ कर सकते हो अगेंस्ट दी आउटपुट सप्लाई, सिंस यू हैव आउटपुट सप्लाई ऑफ completely inverted rate. Then there is another case law in the case of Bright Star Industries, pronounced recently 4th October by Orissa High Court. What happened in this case? एक purchaser था who purchased some goods from a supplier, namely Pavansut Enterprises. This purchaser was in the business of polyvinyl chloride and polyethylene, etc. So when this purchase was made, the purchase was made in April and August 2018. What did the department find out? What did they say? The proper officer issued a show cause notice to this purchaser saying that whatever the purchases you have made, they are not genuine, since the supplier is not existent. And therefore, all the ITC that has been claimed by you, that is against fake invoices and not eligible. So therefore, they just cancel the registration of the purchaser on this point. What had happened earlier, after when these purchases were made, the registration of the supplier was also cancelled on 1st October 2019. So these were all the facts of the case. But then we need to understand why the registration of purchaser was cancelled without any reason. Proper officer just cancelled the registration, saying that they issued a show cause notice saying that telling the purchaser that you have claimed fake ITC on the basis of fake invoices, since the seller is non-existent. And when the assessee submitted a reply, the proper officer ने उस reply के against भी they just said कि clarification जो आपने submit किया है that is not satisfactory, hence we are cancelling the registration. So they did not supply any particular reason also for cancelling the registration. They just simply said that आपने जो clarification submit किया is not satisfactory, hence it is cancelled. क्योंकि supplier का registration भी cancel हो चुका है and he is non-existent. The case went to Additional Commissioner CT and GST appeals also. They also surprisingly affirmed the order of proper officer, saying कि अगर इस registration को continue किया जाता तो और fraud होता. So to prevent this fraud, any future fraud, the measure taken by proper officer is correct. So the assessee, aggrieved by all this, he filed a writ petition in the High Court. High Court, what did the High Court say? That first of all, you have to go to the rule which gives cases when the registration can be cancelled. So Rule 21, which specifies three, four conditions, in particularly only in those conditions the registration can be cancelled. These conditions are when the person does not conduct any business from the declared place of business. जब आपने जो place declare कर रखी है आप उससे business conduct नहीं कर रहे, या फिर you have issued a invoice without supply of goods, आपने invoice issue कर दिया और goods भी supply नहीं किए, या फिर you violated the provisions of section 171. Only in these three particular cases the registration can be cancelled. Proper officer ने जो registration cancel किया वो उसमें ये तीनों ही reasons present नहीं थे. The reason simply was कि supplier was non-existent and clarification submitted by purchaser is not satisfactory. There was no other reason of cancellation. So High Court said कि जब petitioner in किसी circumstance में fall ही नहीं कर रहा तो फिर registration cannot be cancelled. Further, the court also said कि seller का registration अगर cancel हुआ है तो that does not automatically mean कि purchaser का भी cancel होएगा. When the purchases were actually made, that time the supplier was existent. It does not matter that the supplier is not existent on at a later date. Then the court also held that the department, it was wrong on the part of the department that it did not provide any explanation for cancellation of registration at all, and it failed to show that the petitioner deliberately availed the ITC wrongly without showing this that purchaser ने wrong ITC claim किया है या deliberately wrongly avail किया है, the department just cancel the registration. So this was a wrong step on the part of the department. So this is a good judgment which the High Court has pronounced in favor of the purchasing dealers, which tells us that for the fault of the supplier, the purchaser cannot be punished as such. So this was all for today, the judgments and the updates from the GST Council meeting. In case we do have any questions, we can take those questions. I'm just looking at the chat box if any questions are there. So one such question is whether GST input should be fabricated. So the question is whether GST input shall be available on prefabricated aluminium building installed at a rented land for production of furniture. So the issue is whether एक aluminium building है, वहाँ पे कुछ वहाँ पे जो inputs, whether GST input should be available in prefabricated aluminium building. उसमें जो भी material used हुआ है उसका GST input, whether that will be available or not. And it has also been said that ये property immovable नहीं है. So yes, the input will be available because the ITC is restricted only in case of immovable property, and then the goods become part of that immovable property. Whenever something is installed and that is movable and that can be separated and used again without any damage. The test is कि आप उस चीज को separate कर सकते हो और you can use it without damage again at another place, and that thing is movable. So since it is not forming part of a movable property, it can be, the ITC in respect of that can be claimed. I think that is all. Any other question anyone wants to take up, you can do that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Ma'am, for a wonderful session. And your valuable knowledge is useful for us. Thank you, members, for participating with good faith. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
So thank you, Anjali, and thank you to Jaipur branch for inviting me.